All good. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in today. I've got Sara Ackerman who's joining us. So, Sara is a US Today best-selling author who writes books about love and life and all the messy and beautiful imperfections. She believes that the light is just as important as the dark and that the world is in need of uplifting and heartwarming stories. And isn't that certainly true in the times that we have at the moment? Born and raised in Hawaii, she studied journalism and later earned a graduate degrees in psychology and Chinese medicine. She blames Hawaii for her addiction to her writing and sees no end to its untapped stories. A few of her favourite things, in no particular order, are hiking, homemade pizza, a good thunderstorm, stargazing, books, craft beer, her wonderful boyfriend, surfing, mountain streams, friends, and animals. In fact, animals inhabit all of her novels in some way, shape, or form: dogs, donkeys, sea turtles, a featherless chicken, endangered Hawaiian crows, horses, and even a lion. When she's not writing or teaching, you'll find her in the mountains or in the ocean, which is where most of her inspirations happens. And her latest novel is Radar Girls, which I've just been reading on Kindle, and yeah, really, really loved it. It was a great story. Thanks for the story. And thank you so much for joining us. Just one, also, I want to say as well, this is your second time you've been involved in our group. We had you, I think, late last year,
Yes,
as
that's
as our author for the day, which was really great. So thanks for coming back again.
thank you. I love book clubs, any kind of book clubs in real life, online. So I'm thankful to be here.
I'm wondering if you want to start off by telling us a little bit about Radar Girls.
Sure, I would love to. So Radar Girls is my fourth World War II historical novel that is set in Hawaii. And this book is based on real women of the Women's Air Raid Defense. So this group was set up immediately after the attack on Pearl Harbor. And what happened was, as many people know, radar was back in its infancy back then. And we here on Oahu, we actually picked up the incoming Japanese planes at a mobile radar site, but nobody really knew what to do with the information. They thought it was the US bombers coming in. So though we picked it up, we weren't able to do anything with the information. And so they knew, they realized we've got this very valuable technology. And the war, we were thrust into the war. And so the men had to, be freed up for fighting. So they recruited these women, a top secret bunch of women, to essentially they were like air traffic controllers. They were there to defend the islands, tracking enemy planes, helping guide pilots, working in top secret and at command centers throughout the islands.
And how did you get the idea to write this novel?
So, when you're researching, you're always looking through information online or in books. And I came upon this particular story when I was researching for my second book, The Lieutenant's Nurse. I read an article online about it, and it was a great article, and I was instantly interested. And then I ordered a book. This book, it's called The Shuffleboard Pilots, and it was written by some of the wards, is what they call themselves, the wards, 4 of them particularly. And, it chronicled their stories. It told in-depth information about, the radar and all the technology. And it was a fascinating book. And so that was really my inspiration for it.
And how easy or hard was this to research? Was there quite a lot of information?
It was hard. I think this was the hardest book in that respect, for sure, because I'm not a radar expert. And I'm not a pilot. I don't know much about aviation. And so though I had, previous knowledge about Pearl Harbor, the timeline of all the big battles, Pearl Harbor, Midway, and I knew quite a bit about life in Hawaii during the war, this required me to dig a lot deeper, for sure.
Yeah. And were there people still alive that you could talk to about this?
Well, I got the name of one woman who I think she's 98, and I was not able to speak with her, unfortunately.
Okay.
So no, I didn't speak with any. So I got their firsthand stories out of this book. And then I have spoken with a few of their children.
Okay. Yeah. And are all your novels set around World War II?
Are they all around World War II?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's your interest with World War II? Why are they?
So I was born and raised here in Hawaii, and I grew up on my grandparents' stories and my parents' stories of the war. So, you know, back in the 70s when I was young, the war it didn't seem so far away, you know, back then. It was still fresh in everyone's minds. And so my grandfather was the principal of a big high school on the Big Island. And my grandmother was a teacher there. And they always talked, you know, they had so when you're the principal in a small town in Hawaii back then, you were an important person in the community. And all the soldiers would stay at my grandparents' house on the weekends. Okay. And they had a pet lion or a mascot that they had smuggled in. So that was the inspiration for my first book. And so, you know, I think just growing up on all these amazing stories is what got me interested.
Yeah. And have you got a lot more in your head waiting for around that era as well? Or?
It's funny you should ask. So I just finished my 5th one.
Yeah.
And that's actually about a code breaker. And but it's also a dual timeline. So it's also 1965. And the two stories are woven together, kind of there's a mystery that's involved in both timelines. And it was almost like a segue out of World War II for me. I'm not sure. I don't want to be pigeonholed into just World War II or historical, because I've written a few contemporary novels, you know, women's fiction, a little bit of little hints of magical realism. So we'll see.
Yeah. And we've got quite a few people watching, which is really great. So just reminding people, if you're watching and you have any questions for Sara, please type them in comments and I can read them out to her. So we've got a few comments from people. Kelly said she definitely feels your books are uplifting and she loves how you blend romance and historical fiction.
Hey, thank you. I feel like I'm not sure that I could write a novel without there being a love story.
Yeah.
That's just how I am, I guess.
Yeah. And Jill says she's loving your sunflowers in the background that we can see.
Oh, thank you.
They look very nice.
Happy flowers.
And Geraldine says World War II is her favourite historical era, so she's loving the sound of your book already.
Awesome.
And Jill is also wondering if you've always wanted to be an author.
You know, I've always loved writing, and my mom was a teacher, and it's cute because she saved a lot of my old poem books or writings, and I have this one piece of writing that I did when I was 10 that she saved that kind of, to me, feels like maybe that was at the beginning of me intuitively knowing that this is something I wanted to do. But I didn't start writing actually until I was in my early 40s, writing novels. I always wrote poems, and every year at Christmas, I would compile a book of those poems and give them out as Christmas gifts.
Oh, nice.
But I've never written novels, even though I always loved novels, loved reading. And I had even, when I was younger, read Stephen King's book on writing. And I always thought that I wanted to do it, but it wasn't, I never seriously considered it until I was in my early 40s. And then I just sat down to write a book one day.
And so what did you do? What was your career before you became a writer?
I had a graduate degree in counseling psychology. So I was a school counselor, and then kind of shifted gears and went to acupuncture school.
Okay.
And that was actually when I had more time finally, and so I started writing on the side.
Yeah, okay. And Geraldine's wondering, what did you find was the most fascinating aspect of the research you did for Radar Girls?
Um, I think for me, this was something that I had never even heard of, which is surprising. And nor had a lot of the older people here that I knew that I've grown up with, or around. And so it was really fascinating for me to learn about that it was this top secret group. And also to learn about these radar stations on the islands. And I think what really struck me when I was researching and reading the story, these women's firsthand accounts, was they were very similar to my friends and I. I feel like they were a really fun bunch of women, aside from all the serious, things that were happening. And they were in Hawaii during a very dark time, and yet they still managed to have these very deep friendships. They managed to keep their sense of humor. And I just feel like if I had been born a couple generations earlier, I very well may have been one of these radar girls.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
cool.
I've got a couple of people asking, Jill and Kelly, what your favourite books are to read yourself, and just wondering if you've read any books this year that you might want to recommend to us.
I always say my favorite 3 books so I loved Prodigal Summer by Barbara Kingsolver, because I'm a nature girl, and so I really love Barbara Kingsolver. I love The Secret Life of Bees. I love her. I love Where the Crawdads Sing. That's my most recent favorite. And then this year, I recently read a advanced copy of a book called The Last Checkmate by Gabriella Cobb. It's a World War II story, kind of Queen's Gambit. It's got chess in it, and it's at Auschwitz. That was an excellent book. I love this book that I read last year it was another author blurb, and it was called Rescue You.
Okay.
It's about a woman, and she rescues her dogs, which I love.
Okay. That sounds like a good one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for those recommendations. Just wondering, with the characters and events, how much would you say is like based on actual true? Are the characters actually people that you like? I know it's true events that have happened, but are the characters people that you have heard about, or?
No, the characters, I think when I was reading this book, The Shuffleboard Pilots, I took in a lot of their stories, but I almost like to write my own characters, and so Daisy and all the women in it are not real people.
Yeah.
They're my imagination, but I tried to keep all their stories in there, like, for example, just like the lingerie thief.
Yeah,
Story.
yeah, that was, yeah.
And just about all the events, the husband's going off to battle, the Battle of Midway, and what was happening then, all the air raid sirens and that kind of thing. So it is very much rooted in true events, and the characters are my own.
Yeah, yeah. And sorry, Jill is wondering, like you said, you've got a love of animals. What animals do you have yourself?
I have a dog and 3 cats.
Okay.
I would love to get a donkey.
Oh, really?
I have a fascination with donkeys. On the Big Island, they have, there's a lot of wild donkeys that were here that used to transport the coffee beans. And sometimes they have these donkey rescues, and it's my dream to get a donkey.
Yeah. Oh, nice. And could you tell us, do you structure your writing day or have any writing rituals?
I do. I try to write. I'm one of those people that writes mostly every day, give or take, a day off here and there. I write in the morning, and my goal is usually 700 to 1,000 words a day. And I'll often have to split that up between morning and then again in the afternoon. So
Yeah.
that, and then it usually takes about 5 months to do a first draft, although Radar Girls took a lot longer because of the pandemic, and I
Okay.
couldn't even think or concentrate in those first
Yeah.
couple months.
Yeah.
So I couldn't focus.
Mm. And could you tell us a bit about how you first got published and how hard or easy that might have been for you?
Yeah, it was hard. So in the beginning, I set a goal for myself. Well, first I wrote my first book, had no idea what I was doing at all. I love the story, but when I go back and read it, it's amazing to see how far I've come. But and I would tell everybody this might be the worst book ever written, but hey, at least I wrote it. And I pitched that book, and then while I was kind of pitching that book to agents, I wrote another one. Same thing, nobody, agents bit, and then I wrote another one. And meanwhile, I was going to the Santa Barbara Writers Conference every year, which was very helpful. So I'm really big on writers conferences, where you can get feedback and learn. And then my fourth book, this was Island of Sweet Pies and Soldiers, and I was getting some interest from agents, but no one really, made an offer. So then I hired an editor, a really great developmental editor. And then after that, I got the offer.
Okay.
And then when we pitched it to publishers, we had an offer. I think with my agent, we worked on it for about 6 months, and then
So how long was that whole process from when you first started to you got there?
Almost 6 years from when I started writing to when I got.
And how did you keep going? Like that's a reasonable amount of time. How did you make yourself keep going and not just give up? And
I think I knew that it was a long haul, and I knew that I was starting off. I had so much to learn. I wasn't, though I graduated with a degree in journalism, I wasn't really working as a writer. And, I'm not a journalist or a reporter. And so I was starting off without even kind of the most basic skills. I got good grades in English, but that's a whole different story. And so I had a Post-it on my wall that said patience and perseverance, and I gave myself 10 years. Okay. So I said, if I don't have a book published in 10 years, like through the traditional means, then I will go ahead and just self-publish.
And did you have someone who really kept encouraging you through that time?
My father was amazing. He really loved my first books. He just, one day I remember he called me and he said, I'm reading your book, because I think I left my first book with him. He's all, and it's really great. And so a few, things like that, a friend that would read it, even though it was obviously very imperfect, she's like, I really want to know what happens. And so that kind of thing.
That's great. Geraldine's wondering if you extensively plot your novels or you just let it take its own path as you're writing.
In the beginning, I was way more of a pantser, so I was just kind of writing by the seat of my pants and not really plotting out that much. And then now when you have a publisher, you have to write a synopsis beforehand, a long, 10-page synopsis. So I do a fair amount of plotting, and I know, and they know that things may well change, but I feel like it really does help, because then you don't get halfway through and then you've done something that you can't get yourself out of, or your characters out of. So it does help.
And Kelly's wondering, of all your books, do you have a favorite character?
A favorite character? That's a good question. I think I really love the volcano, and I really love, in my third book, there's a young girl, and she's a young German girl whose parents were taken away to the camp, and her name is Coco. And she loves the animals, and I think she might be one of my favorite characters. I just really loved writing her.
Geraldine's wondering if you think you'll go back and rewrite your earlier books that weren't taken up by the publisher. And also she's wondering if they were World War II as well.
They were not. They were present day love stories with a bit of intrigue and mystery thrown in. And nature. I really want to rewrite them. I really want to. I haven't had the time because I've been doing a book almost every year. 15 months. But I really do, because I really love the stories. And I think that even if I end up not publishing them traditionally, if I can't sell them to a publisher, then I will probably put them out on my own, because I really love them.
And Jill's wondering if you pay attention to your reviews, whether they're good or bad.
I do pay attention. I try not to pay attention. I don't read my bad reviews. I learned the hard way in the beginning not to read my bad reviews, because the book's already out. There's nothing I can do to fix it. And it's just, one bad review will just stick in your head and you cannot get it out of your head. It's like someone, hurting your baby. It's just this horrible feeling. And so I don't. I really don't. I try not to.
And could you tell us what you hope readers will love about your books?
I hope readers, I think like what you said, I hope readers will love the fact that these are kind of heartwarming and uplifting stories. And I just feel like they have a lot of heart to them, and friendship and love. And, I just hope that readers come away, I think, feeling inspired or feeling the hope for humanity, because these books are written in a really pretty dark time in our history here in Hawaii. But they're more about the people that were here and what they were living through and the connections, rather than the dog fights and battles and that kind of thing. So
And how have you found trying to promote your books now compared to pre-COVID?
Well, because I'm all the way out in Hawaii, and there's just not a whole lot here in terms of, we've got some great little bookstores, but it's not a big literary scene. So I honestly don't feel like it's that much different. In fact, it's probably better for me because of all the online.
Did you used to travel a lot for promotion, or in the past? Not really.
No, I didn't.
So that
hasn't changed. Up until this past year, I was a teacher. I was teaching at a high school on the Big Island, and I had English and I had a novel writing class where they wrote novels, which was fun. But so it was hard for me to get off, and it's a long way to go from Hawaii to the mainland.
So it's given you more opportunities then, really, because there is a lot more online.
But I would love to do a tour. I think it would be really fun. It's always been a dream of mine. So we'll see.
And you said that you do some teaching. Could you tell us what tips you would give any aspiring authors?
Yes, I think that there's definitely, so patience and perseverance were, that I said that was my motto. You just have to know that it's for most people, it's going to be a long haul. Also, I think there's a certain amount of discipline required. So a lot of people, wait for inspiration. I've had to write through, the death of my father, illnesses, pandemics, where I'm not feeling inspired at all. So it's sort of, it's like a job, and you just sit down and you do it. And even on days where you just feel like you are writing crap, you just keep writing. So that's one thing. Another thing that I think that really helped me, my favorite piece of advice was when you're writing, to always end up kind of mid-scene or in the middle of something happening. Like you never end at the end of a chapter, because that way when you start in the morning the next day, you know exactly, you're already in the middle of something.
Yeah.
So you don't have to think, what am I gonna, where am I gonna start now? You're already there. And that has really helped me.
Yeah.
I find that really
And a lot of authors that I've spoken to before have mentioned about the connections they have with other authors. Is that something you are able to have? You said in Hawaii it's like not as big a literary scene in that. Is that something that you've been able to do, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the beauty, I think, of the internet also. And in no other field, I think, are people so supportive of each other. Like I've become good friends with some other authors that we share the same publisher, other historical fiction authors that I've done, just panels with, and other, a few authors here in Hawaii, and everyone is just so supportive. It's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And when you're writing, do you like to share your work with someone close as you're going along, or do you usually wait till it's finished?
I actually usually wait. In the beginning, I had a friend who would come out and stay with me a lot, and she'd come out almost every weekend, and because I live on the North Shore and out in the country, and she'd come visit, and she would read every weekend as I was writing and give me feedback. But then I moved away and didn't have that, and I generally keep it to myself, and then I give it to my agent. She does a great job of giving me a lot of suggestions.
Yeah.
Then I'll do a lot of adding words, rewriting, and then we submit it. So I do really, really, really value agents and editors, because they make the book so much better. But in the beginning, I think I like doing it on my own. I will run things by friends though, ask them questions and stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for answering our questions. Just wondering, before we finish off, do you want to let people know how they can keep in touch with you?
Sure, yes. I have a website. It's ackermanbooks.com. I think I have Facebook and Instagram. So on Instagram, I'm Sara Ackerman Books. And then on Facebook, I'm Ackerman Books. And if you forget, it's all on my website. I think I'm on Instagram the most. I love posting pictures of Hawaii and my books and that kind of thing.
No, that sounds great, especially for us in Australia who can't travel to Hawaii at the moment. It would be great to see some photos.
Yeah, I know. But I love Australia. I love New Zealand. I love traveling. I'm not a huge traveler, but I do love it.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be able to do that more in a while. Thank you so much, and thanks for everyone who joined in and the questions that people asked.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.